social works, 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 yeah, S works, everyone put it in their hands, you know it's a vibe, they're waiting in line to get up and flood up the stands, yeah, we in this together, we feeling like fam, it's all about peace, so pull up with friends, you better come through with you and your crew, cause everybody going in, S works, so we keep it lit, you can see how we move the city from the west side to the east, ooh, you can feel how we leave through, it's all about the youth, change the world through the tunes, make the world to a better place, and S works what we do.
Social works, social works, social works, social, social works, social works, social works, social works. Keep my family out the dirt. This organization, we stopping no Satan and open, but we call it SWorks. Action on Taylor, the killer verses. I do on my family, my city hurt. They killing our babies, this work on crazy. I pray for my city to reimburse. Private schools for the kiddies. We the city, yeah, we litty. All I know is it's work. Working hard, keep it busy. Know the life can be tricky, but please just let me finish. Let me just be a witness. SWorks handle business.
Social works, social works, social works, social works, social works, social works.
Ready or not, here we come. South side, west side, east side, north side. Up on the run, we ain't for the none. We came in the party, we in for the fun. Celebrate life, the party we young. Sky is the limit, we looking above. We up in the sun, no matter what, we stay on the run. Ha, S work, do your thing. S work, keep it lit. Bullseye, keep your aim. Yeah, we up on the jib. North side, that's the way. Ready or not, here we come. S work, keep the energy. Look, yeah, we never unplug. S work, show some love.
Social works, social works, social works, social works, social works, social works. social works, social works, social works, social works, social works, social works, social works. Yeah, S works. Everyone put in their hands. You know it's a vibe. They're waiting in line to get up and flood up the stands. Yeah, we in this together. We feeling like fam. It's all about peace. So pull up with fans. You better come through with you and your crew, cause everybody going in. S works, so we keep it lit. You can see how we move the city from the west side to the east. Ooh, you can feel it how we leave through. It's all about the youth. Change the world through the tunes. Make the world to a better place. And S works what we do.
Social works, social works, social works, social works, social works. Social works. Keep my family out the dirt. This organization, we stopping no Satan and open, but we call it SWorkshop. Action on Taylor, the killer verses. I do on my foot, my city hurt. They killing our babies, this war going crazy. I pray for my city to reimburse. Running schools for the kids. We the city, yeah, we litty. All I know is it's work. With the heart, keep it busy. Know the life keep it tricky, but please just let me finish. Let me just be a witness. S works, handle business.
Social works, social works, social works, social works, social works.
SWorkshops are a series of online workshops featuring the many incredibly talented friends of SocialWorks. This series aims to inspire and educate, bringing local and national creatives live to your smartphone. They will be sharing and teaching specific aspects of their craft. A wide variety of professions, interests, and hobbies are represented within our curriculum. Did we mention it's a fundraiser too? The stay-at-home notice has students wondering what's to come. For some, graduation and prom will both be canceled. This campaign will directly fundraise a celebration event for those students within the Chicagoland area. Once it's safe, of course. Tune in to any of our socials for one or all of the SWorkshops. You can find the full schedule of programming at socialworksshy.org or on our Instagram. Classes start Monday, April 13th. We'll see you there.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. My name is Mariya Chukas, and I will be talking to you all about how to conduct your college search and answering questions about the college search and application process. So we'll go ahead and get started. Just before we get started, though, feel free to use the website slido.com and look up the hashtag SWorks, and you can use that to ask any questions or leave any comments that you may have. So feel free to do that on a separate device. And just a reminder that this event, the workshops, are going towards the Social Works Prom Fund. So there will be a link right below me for the majority of the time, and you can use that link to go ahead and make a donation. You can also text Social Works to 797979, and that will give you some more information on how to do so. Afterwards, you are more than welcome to head to Social Works' YouTube page and use that to subscribe to them. They definitely want to get their followers up so that they can put on some more cool events and do some cool things with those subscribers. So go ahead and subscribe to their YouTube channel, and feel free to use that to catch up on any other workshops that you want to see or that you may have missed out on, or maybe even rewatch this one for additional tips too. So we will go ahead and get started. You'll learn a little bit more in that presentation, and then we'll come back for a Q&A and get any of those questions of yours answered along the way. So feel free to drop them in those comments. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me today. My name is Mariya Chukas, and today I'll be covering the topic of how to start your college search, as well as sharing some resources you can utilize along the way. Before I begin, I just want to say that I hope all of you and your loved ones are staying safe and healthy during this time. I know how much has changed over the past few weeks, and hopefully today's topic can help you get ahead of the game and avoid some stress down the road. This presentation is geared towards juniors in high school. However, I think anyone at any stage can find this information useful, whether they're using it themselves or providing support to someone who's going through the college search process. I'm really happy to have this opportunity to support SocialWorks, and you can show your support by making a donation to one of the links below. These workshops serve as a fundraiser that'll go towards a prom and graduation celebration for our high school students in the Chicagoland area, who are unfortunately missing out on such opportunities due to COVID-19. So please take some time to donate, and feel free to drop any questions that you have for me throughout my presentation in the comment section. Before I begin, I want to make sure that I introduce myself. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Mariya Chukas, and I serve as a Chicago-based regional admissions representative for the University of Missouri, also known as Mizzou. My role as an admissions representative means that I get to work with students, their families, counselors, and so many more amazing people in regards to helping students learn about the options available to them throughout the college search, application, and decision-making process. Now, a little bit more about my background. I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, and I also attended the University of Missouri myself. While at Mizzou, I studied business administration with a marketing emphasis, and I also got a Spanish minor and a multicultural studies certificate. I absolutely loved my experience going away to Mizzou for college, so hopefully what I share with you all today can help you find your perfect fit in the school that's best for you. I'll be breaking today's topic into 3 sections. So making the list, organizing the list, and implementing the list. First things first, making the list. Where do you even start with that? So let's take a look. I think the college search process can definitely be a time that you use to discover yourself. You're entering a stage of life that's not necessarily as mapped out for you. You may have started to see that in high school, where you may have had the option to select elective classes or join extracurricular activities. However, college is a different ballgame. I think this is a time to ask yourself some questions like, what do I want to study? Do I have any idea what I want to study? How far away from home do I want to go? Do I care about the temperature or climate? Do I want to be in a college town? Do I want a small school, a medium-sized school, or a large school? Would I like to do research in my field, or maybe even study abroad? These are some questions that can help guide your thought process. But even with having the answers to all of those questions, that doesn't necessarily tell you exactly what school you should go to. There are literally thousands of options to pick from across the country and even across the world. So how do you locate some options to start with? Number 1, use the people around you. Talk to any family members or friends that you have who've gone through the college search process for themselves. Perhaps students that are a year or 2 above you can help. Reach out to your teachers or counselors. If you haven't already, this is a great time to get connected with your high school counselor. Some of your schools may even have a counselor that's dedicated to the college and career aspect, so start getting to know them. Find out what their educational path was like. It's a great way to learn about specific institutions, and you may find out that you have a lot in common along the way. Your teachers and your counselors are the ones who put on the events like college fairs or career fairs and invite admissions representatives into your schools and organizations. Another resource is going online. If you know what you want to study or what qualities you're looking for in a campus, maybe start by looking up some of those. Looking at rankings can help you get introduced to some colleges that you may not have even been aware of. While those rankings can be really helpful as a starting point, I always advise doing your own research after that. Don't just solely rely on what the ranking says, because they all use different factors and take different things into consideration. Now, as you're having these conversations and doing this research, I would recommend creating an email address that's specifically for college-related things. I say this because you may want to get added to a school's mailing or communications list. This is an easy way to make sure that things don't get mixed up. I always recommend not using your school email address because if you're like me, you may want to access some of those emails or documents that you got even after you leave high school. And typically after a certain period of time, you lose access to that high school email account. My method of choice was to create a Gmail account. I made separate folders for each school on the side, but also heavily used Google Drive. I created spreadsheets of information. I used Google Docs to type my essay drafts, and this also meant that I could access it from wherever I was. I also heavily used, and honestly still use, Google Calendar for important dates and deadlines. That'll be especially important when these applications start to open up throughout the summer. So this is a great time to start taking responsibility for your future and holding yourself accountable. I personally love how much detail you can put into a Google Calendar event. So I would include links of websites to a specific scholarship that I'm applying to. Or if I'm getting ready to fill out the FAFSA, I'll add my parent or guardian as and as someone who's attending my event so that they can get the notification as well. Also, I'm a big fan of color coding too. So now that you started doing your research and you know what tools you can use, it's time to start organizing that list. And so you want to use an Excel sheet to start listing colleges that you find during your search. On the sheet, you may include things like the school's name, location, and distance from home, cost of attendance. Also pay attention to any differences for in-state versus out-of-state, majors that are offered that you may be interested in, campus resources that are available to you, etc. In my opinion, this list should consist of 10 to 15 schools. Does that mean you're applying to each and every one of those 10 to 15 schools? Most likely not. But an important part of your search is not just about finding what you like, but also maybe what you don't like. It's not expected that you fall in love with every single school you encounter, so this list will most likely shrink, and it should. For my high school juniors especially, the summer is approaching. I recommend budgeting small chunks of time, maybe 1 to 2 hours each week, to focus on college-related things. Be flexible with your time and use it wisely because it ends up going by way faster than you think. I don't expect you to look up colleges, start drafting essays, and apply to 2 scholarships in one weekend, but maybe you can start looking up the admissions criteria and the academic resources offered, and the size and locations of the schools. And then maybe you can use another weekend to start drafting your personal statement and continue to go along from there. So let us take a quick vocab break because I just mentioned a few items there that I want to make sure we're all on the same page about. First, admissions requirements. Admissions requirements are what a school will be using to determine your admissibility, aka whether or not you can get into their school. These may be things like your standardized test scores, your GPA, specific classes you took in high school, extracurricular activity involvement, personal statements, letters of recommendation, etc., etc., etc. This will be different for every school, and that's part of why I recommend narrowing down your list even further, because it becomes a lot to keep track of. Another term I just used was personal statement. So this is an essay that some schools require. Use this essay to tell more about yourself and cover things that may not be reflected in other parts of your application. For example, why are you interested in a particular field? Or something special about your life story, or maybe a hardship or an obstacle that you've had to overcome. So now, along with organizing the list, as you're putting your schools together, you may want to put some schools in each of these different areas: match schools, reach schools, and safety schools. Another vocab break. Match schools are schools where your academic credentials are similar to that of the average freshman that is at that school. It's not a guarantee that you're going to apply and get accepted, but you can apply knowing that you have a pretty decent chance of being admitted based on their previous students that they've admitted. Reach schools are schools where you may be a little bit below their admission standards or below the qualifications for the average admitted student. Safety schools are schools where you exceed the qualifications of the average incoming freshman, but again, it's not a guarantee that you'll be admitted, but you may have a higher possibility of it. As I said earlier, the college search process causes a lot of self-reflection and discovery, so be realistic with yourself throughout this process. Whether it's a safety, reach, or match school, ultimately it should be a school that you would be happy to attend. Now, if you have questions about admissions requirements or want to know more information about a college, that's where people like me, admissions representatives, can help you out. As I mentioned earlier, we're here to help you through the college search process, and depending on the school, your admissions representative may even be the one who reviews your application. So it's great to start building that connection. You can typically find our contact information on the university's admissions website. Communicate with us electronically. Come interact with us when you see us at college fairs. Attend our visits when we come to your high school, but just know we are here to help. Now, aside from talking to people and talking to family and counselors and doing research online, another great way to get a feel for a school is to do a campus visit. Now, during traditional times, I would encourage finding a weekday during the year for you and your support system. So, whether that's a parent, sibling, counselor, guardian, etc., to head to campus and go visit it for yourself. However, in these times, it does not hurt to use your online resources. A lot of schools are offering virtual tours, virtual admissions presentations, and virtual chats with current students or admissions representatives. So make the most of it. These can typically also be found on a school's admissions website. Even if you do plan to eventually physically visit a campus, going on a virtual tour can help you with your familiarity when you actually get the chance to do so. This is a time where flexibility and adaptability are key. Reflecting back to my own college search process, I personally didn't have the financial resources to visit all of the schools that I was interested in. I actually never visited Mizzou before I ended up attending. So what I did was I used my time to look up colleges that had programs for high school students over the summer or on a weekend, something that was nearby to me. Some may even offer scholarships or assist with transportation to attend or participate in that program. For example, during my senior year of high school, there was a brief portion when I thought I wanted to go into medicine. So I participated in a weekend medical program for high schoolers at a college in the Chicagoland area. While I wasn't necessarily interested in the school, I was able to get experience in my field and see what campus operations look like at a school of that size. Now, if you have the chance to physically visit a school, I recommend doing so on a weekday during the academic year, so that way you can see what a typical day looks like. Also, check with your high school counselor to see if your school has any college visits planned. These visits can take place before or after you apply, or maybe even both. While on these visits, it's important to make the most of it and know what you're looking for. Ask yourself some questions like, how do I feel on the campus? Are things within walking distance, or do I need a car or a bike? What resources are available to me as a student, like social support and academic support? What's the food like? What are the dorms like? Are there a lot of ways to get involved across campus? Can I see myself living here for the next 4 years of my life? So you've done your online research, you've talked to people around you, you've checked out the campus in some capacity, and now it's time to figure out what schools you actually want to apply to. Now it's time to implement or carry out the list. At this point, you've most likely taken some schools off of your list for various reasons, and that is great. That's perfectly fine. I recommend applying to 5, maybe 10 schools max. During this process, and honestly, in life in general, it's easy to play the comparison game. Not one journey looks exactly the same, so please don't feel the need to apply to 50 colleges and try to get over $1 million in scholarships. Ultimately, you are picking one school and accepting one financial aid package. So let's say you did apply to 50 schools. That is 50 logins and passwords for student portals, 50 financial aid packages, 50 schools that you'll probably want to physically visit, but 49 schools that you have to inform that you'll be attending somewhere else when that time comes. And keep in mind, not all colleges have free applications. You can talk to your high school counselor about whether or not you qualify for an application fee waiver. In some cases, the application may be free, while the average is about $50, and some schools may be as high as $70 or $80. As I mentioned earlier, have a couple of reach, match, and safety schools that you apply to. Update that Google sheet that you started to reflect the schools that you're applying to and what you'll need along the way. When does the application open? Is the application on the college's website? Is it on the Common App? Does the application require an essay? Do you need letters of rec? Who would you want to reach out to for those letters of rec? When is the application due? Is the school early action? What is the cost of attendance? Does the school offer scholarships? Do these scholarships require a separate application? Those are a bunch of questions that you can start off with and use to update that list of yours. But I think it's time for another vocab break. So, the Common App or the Common Application. That is an online application form that can be used to apply to any of its member colleges. It allows for your general information to be in one location so that you don't have to input it numerous times on different college applications. Applying early action means that you are completing your application by a particular date, November 1st, for example, and the school will notify you of your admission status by a specific date like mid-December, December 15th, for example. Early action is a non-binding agreement, meaning that you don't have to accept their offer if you're given one. Applying early decision is similar to applying early action in the sense that your application typically has an earlier deadline. Think November 1st. However, this is a binding application, meaning that if the school accepts you, you are obligated to go there and must withdraw your other college application. Rolling admissions is when you are admitted or evaluated based on when your required materials are received. For example, at Mizzou, we operate on a rolling admissions basis, meaning that when our application opens up on August 1st, students can begin submitting their application materials. And when we receive the required materials, in our case, the application and fee, the official transcripts and official test scores, we'll begin evaluating a student for admission. So rather than hearing back on a specific date, like December 15th, a student can hear back within just a few weeks of submitting their application if the school is on a rolling admissions basis. Now, cost of attendance is the average amount that it'll cost to attend a school for a full academic year. This includes things like tuition, room and board, textbooks, and fees. When it comes to paying for college, you may hear financial aid terms like FAFSA, scholarships, grants, loans, and work study. Now, FAFSA, not FAFSA, please do not say FAFSA or I will cry, stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. FAFSA is a form that's completed by prospective college students as well as current college students, and it's used to determine the financial aid that they're eligible for. It uses your financial information to determine your eligibility for things like grants, work study, and loans. A term you may hear along with FAFSA is something called EFC. This stands for Expected Family Contribution. Basically, how much is the FAFSA estimating that your family can contribute towards your education based on what you put on the form? Now, backtracking a little bit, scholarships are a type of financial aid that can be used to pay for cost of attendance. So a lot of scholarships are merit-based, but you can find a lot of scholarships based on different criteria. Unlike a loan, you don't have to pay a scholarship back. Scholarships can come specifically from a college, they can come from a large company or corporation, they can come from involvement in a particular program, or even from your community, like a church or a nonprofit organization. If you're tuning in and this is prior to your senior year, please do not think that you have to wait till your senior year to apply for scholarships. Start now. Begin looking into outside or external scholarship resources. And please go for scholarships of all sizes. Don't just go for the large $10,000 award. Maybe try out the $250 award or the $500 award. You may even find that some of them have similar prompts for their essays. Now, a grant is financial aid that you don't have to pay back. Grants are typically need-based and are usually awarded based on your eligibility after filling out the FAFSA. Loans are borrowed money from the government or from a lender that have to be paid back. Work study is money that you can earn through a part-time job that you can put towards your educational expenses. If you're interested in work study, make sure you indicate that on the question that asks about it when you fill out the FAFSA. Now, please note that you don't have to have a work study job in order to have a part-time job. So, to remember the differences between a few of these things, I think about it like this. If I grant you a wish, you don't have to give me that wish back. So that's how a grant works. That's aid that you receive that you don't have to pay back. However, if I loan you money, I want that money back. Sometimes I want it back with interest. So definitely take time to explore all of those options that are available to you. Again, this process calls for a lot of reflection and honesty. It's important to have conversations with your families and those support systems to determine what resources are available to you in terms of locating colleges, paying for college, and remaining successful throughout the process. So now it's about time for me to wrap up. So I just want to recap what we went over today. Okay. So hopefully this can get the juices flowing and give you a starting point, but by no means is it everything that you need to know. Start with a solid foundation. Create a new and appropriate email address. Ask questions. Learn from your family, friends, teachers, counselors, and others that have already been through the process. Visit colleges, whether virtually or in person, and take notes about what stands out to you. Utilize admissions representatives and those at the schools that you're interested in for more information. Try to avoid playing the comparison game. Make the decisions that are best for you. Be realistic and honest with yourself when having this discussion, and honestly, when you're having this discussion with your support system too. The goal is to find the overall best fit for you. And lastly, breathe, relax. You'll get through it. You have people like me who are here and ready to support you and cheer for you along the way. So please do not hesitate to reach out with questions. For me, you can find me on Twitter at Mizzou Mariya. It's also at the bottom of this slide. And you can also find my contact form on the University of Missouri's admissions website. Just a reminder, please, please, please make a donation to the Social Works Workshops fundraiser. You can find donation information below as well as on their social media pages. This fundraiser is going towards putting on a celebration for high school students that are missing out on their proms and graduation ceremony. So that about wraps up all I have for you all today. Again, my name is Mariya Chukas. Thank you so much for joining me today, and please stay safe, stay healthy, and spread some love to those around you. Bye-bye. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me. If you were tuned in or tried to tune in, we were having a few difficulties with Instagram Live. So thank you so much for joining me and hopping back in. I'll go ahead and do a Q&A, and I'll kind of recap what we covered a little bit earlier in the presentation. And then once we're done with Q&A, we'll go ahead and run the playback of the recorded presentation so that you can see what you might have missed out on if you didn't get to tune in on any of the other networks. So feel free, you can head to slido.com, which you should see on your screen. So slido.com, and look at the hashtag SWorks, and you can use that to ask questions. You can also drop them in the Instagram comments, and feel free to ask away. The topic of today was the college search process. So answering questions about what that process looks like, how to begin your college search, questions that you may have and resources you can use, as well as how to actually progress with the college application process. So feel free to ask any questions and I would be happy to answer them. And in the meantime, while you are asking away, you can go ahead and make a donation too. Don't forget that we are here to support the Social Works Prom Fund. So there should be a link below me with information on how to make a donation. You can also text Social Works to 7977979. And make sure you subscribe to their YouTube channel. So that's youtube.com/socialworks. Again, my name is Mariya Chukas, and I'm an undergraduate admissions representative for the University of Missouri, so feel free to ask away. And I do see that we had a question pop up, so I'll go ahead and read that for you all. So it says, how should I reply to admissions rejections? And that is a great question. So that's one of the reasons that I encourage applying early, so that way if you do happen to get a denial at first, or maybe you get a deferment, you can reach out and get some additional details as to maybe why that happened, or if there's any additional steps you can take, especially if it's a school that you're really interested in attending. In order to reply, let's say it's a school that you're still interested in pursuing, maybe you can see if you can get details about your application or talk to an admissions evaluator or an admissions representative about why that might have happened. Maybe you were close, but you didn't quite hit the test score requirements, or maybe there was something that they didn't receive as part of your application. So I would definitely recommend reaching out to your admissions representative, and also reaching out to the campus itself to see if there's anything else that you can do in the meantime. So some schools may allow you to, for example, retake your standardized test scores so that way they can either use your highest composite score or maybe even super score. So definitely reach out to your university of interest so that you can figure out how you should go about that process. Oh, I see a few more questions coming in. Let's see. Are there out-of-state colleges that offer reduced admissions costs to Illinois residents? That is a good question. So yes, there are some schools that do offer reduced cost to Illinois residents. It'll be really dependent on the school. So again, that's why it comes to doing your research of the schools that you're interested in. Some schools, for example, my school, University of Missouri, we offer something called residency to Illinois residents. And so that's a chance for them to, even though they're technically out of state, so let's say a Chicago student wanted to come to Mizzou, even though a student may be out of state, they have the option to become a Missouri resident and get in-state tuition that way. And so there are a few different ways. You might even see some scholarship opportunities. Those may be merit-based, for example, that'll look at how you're doing academically, and those can provide you with scholarships to get in-state tuition. Or some of them just flat out offer in-state tuition to out-of-state students. So it's really going to be dependent on your schools, and that's why it's great to use times like right now or maybe over the summer for my junior students to go ahead and do some of that research for yourself. Let's see, we got another question. I see, how many colleges should I apply to? So that is one that I mentioned in the presentation, but like I said, unfortunately, we had some issues with Instagram, so we'll replay that in just a little bit, but that is an amazing question. So I always recommend about 5 to 10. I think anything over that, I mean, you're more than welcome to do, but it can become a little bit overwhelming. You have to keep up with all of those logins and passwords. You have to keep up with those financial aid packages, those communications, those deadlines. So I do think that anything over 10 might be a little bit much. And also keep in mind that you have to pay to apply to most of these schools. So most schools have an application fee. Some schools you might be able to apply for free, and you might get to talk to your high school counselor about qualifying for an application fee waiver. But to be on the safe side, I always say between 5 and 10. Maybe some within that reach category, that safety category, and that match category, which you'll hear me talk about in the presentation. And that can give you an idea of how many you should apply to. All right, let's go ahead and take another one. Oh, hi, Ashlyn, saying hi to me. I appreciate that. Great admissions representative right there. Let's see, can I raise my ACT score somehow? Yeah, that is a great question. So as I touched on earlier, some schools may allow you to resubmit your ACT or SAT score. So those standardized tests are something that a lot of colleges, not necessarily all colleges, but a lot of colleges do look at as part of their admissions requirements. So typically that is just a process of going about scheduling another ACT or SAT date and retaking that test and submitting it to your school of interest. Most schools, or a lot of schools, do want that official ACT or SAT report. So when you're taking it, you typically get to mark down a few schools that you can send it to right off the bat. If you know some schools already that you have in mind, feel free to add them to that list. If not, you can usually log back in onto their website or contact the testing center directly, and they can send it to your schools of interest too. So I would say definitely take advantage of any ACT or SAT prep that you see. Utilize their website, as they do have some test preps there now, especially now that things are online. And maybe even check out a book or use some online resources where you can dive a little bit deeper. Sometimes it's just about getting in the mindset. I know when I took the ACT, one thing that I kept doing, at least the first time, was running out of time. So it just took me getting in the mindset of, okay, I have a certain amount of time left, and that's what I should be practicing, is finishing answering all of those questions in that set time frame. So a lot of times it just takes practice. So that's a great question. I see another one that says, let's see, how can I find out if I qualify for a Pell Grant? That is a great question. So you can find that out by filling out the FAFSA. So again, when I play that presentation over again, you'll hear me dive into a little bit deeper detail on what the FAFSA actually is and what grants actually are and the difference between all of those financial aid opportunities. To talk about it right now, a Pell Grant is something that you may qualify for after you fill out the FAFSA. FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So that is a form that you fill out, and it'll use your information to determine how much money you can contribute towards your educational costs and how much money you may be eligible for from a federal level to help you pay for those educational costs too. So by filling out that FAFSA, you can go ahead and you'll end up receiving your financial aid packages from schools, and that'll be a reflection on whether or not you qualify for those grants or loans or even work study opportunities too. Another one says, if I can't go visit a school, how will I find out if it's right for me? I absolutely love that question because from my personal experience, I actually didn't visit too many schools. In terms of the resources that were available to me, I didn't have the ability to navigate all of my other schools that I was applying to. And so when senior year rolled around, I took advantage of the resources like my admissions representative. I took advantage of the admissions website. So I went on virtual tours. I talked to my high school counselor about my options. I talked to students who I knew were, so when I was a senior, I talked to the freshmen who were at that school. So that way I could figure out if their experiences and what I was seeing online and the communications I was receiving were strong enough and suitable for me to make sure that that was the right place. As I said, I work for the University of Missouri. I actually went to the University of Missouri, but I actually never stepped foot on the university's campus until I went to my summer orientation. So I made my decision and everything based off of those online resources that I had and the people that were in my surroundings. So I think a great way, if you can't visit campus, go online. Especially in this scenario that we're in right now, a lot of people are hosting virtual chats. I know I personally can meet with my students one-on-one, typically via Zoom or something, and get some of those questions answered. So even though you might not be able to physically visit, you might still get some great insight from people who were there or working there. All right, another question we see here, what are good resources to find grants and scholarships? That is a great question. I always encourage, especially if this is prior to your senior year, granted my seniors still continue to look for scholarship opportunities, but especially if this is before that senior year, take advantage of those external resources and outside scholarship opportunities. When senior year comes around, for sure, definitely look into your specific schools that you're applying to see what scholarships they have and if those require separate applications. But for right now, check into those different databases. So things like FastWeb, for example, or scholarships.com, different websites where you can receive different scholarship opportunities and have things like that emailed to you, for example. So I know for myself, granted, yes, I did get scholarship opportunities from my school of choice. I also looked into outside scholarships. I was also really involved in my community. So with some of the organizations that I volunteered with, they had scholarship opportunities. I checked with my high school counselor and found out that we had specific high school scholarships, that there were certain scholarships that a student from each high school could get. So definitely don't be afraid to ask. The worst people can say is, no, we don't have an opportunity, but you never know what's there unless you ask. So definitely talk to your counselors and go online and use some of those external resources. All right, I see another question that says, what do you love about Mizzou? Oh geez, how long do I have left? What don't I love about Mizzou? So Mizzou is an amazing school. I think this might sound a little bit cliche, but honestly, the people make the experience. I think that a lot of schools, you might see that a lot of schools offer the same majors. They may have a lot of the same sports, some of the same clubs and activities, but it's the people who are there that make that experience for you. And honestly, that's what helped me make my decision to attend Mizzou, for a place that I'd never stepped foot on, a state that I'd never been in. I felt so connected to the university, even as a senior in high school who'd never visited or knew much about the college. And so when I got there and I just felt support and I felt the welcoming environment, and then pursuing all 4 years and now working for the university and seeing it from a completely different side, one thing that stays consistent is the quality of people. And so I think that is probably the biggest thing I love about Mizzou. Let's see. Gardenia Rosa says, you found your school that way. So yeah, I think you're referring to those online resources. So definitely take advantage of those. Of course, right now, I think we're all spending a lot of time on our computers and on our phones. However, we can definitely make the most of this opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into that search and take advantage of those opportunities. I see another one that says, what are the most affordable school options for students in the Chicagoland area? And that is going to be an it depends question for me. It depends on what students consider affordable. I think everyone has their own financial budgets, so it'll be dependent on how much can you contribute towards your education, how much are you looking to spend on that education, and what are you looking to gain from it. I think affordable varies to each person, so that's why I think looking into those scholarships and grants is going to be really beneficial at this point in time. You'll see that a lot of schools may have opportunities like what I mentioned earlier with different scholarships specifically for out-of-state students, or maybe opportunities to come down to in-state tuition. And so definitely look into those and use this time to do that so that you can see what options are available to you. It'll be dependent on whether or not you want a small school or a large school, public, private, etc. Affordability is definitely important, but ultimately overall fit is going to make a huge is going to play a huge role in that too. I see. How much money and living expenses should I plan for when applying for loans? So I kind of want to tackle that in a few different ways. Oh, thanks, Valencia. I want to tackle that in a few different ways. And so, first of all, again, it depends. It'll be dependent on what school you're looking to go to and what those living expenses live like. For example, let's say you decide you're going to commute to school. Let's say you decide to, if you're in Chicago and stay in the Chicagoland area, let's say that you decide to stay at home. So that may change those living expenses. Or maybe you might go to a campus where you're living on campus. Or maybe you might get to a school and you're living in an apartment. All of those come with different fees and different costs. So it's going to be really dependent on the school that you're looking into, what those costs would live like, or look like, I'm sorry. When it comes to applying for loans, unless you're in probably senior year or making that decision right now, I'd say try to find scholarship opportunities that can help you offset those costs. However, take out the loans that you need. I don't see a reason to take out in excess when it comes to those loans, because those are things that you'll have to pay back. And dependent on the type of loan that you take out, that may determine whether or not interest starts accumulating right away, or if you have to start paying that interest back after, or if that interest starts accumulating after you graduate. So look into all of those terms and conditions before you make a loan option. Good questions. I like this. All right. Should I look into community colleges to keep costs down? That is a great question. It does not hurt to look into community colleges. I think it's going to be, again, based off of what you feel comfortable with and what that best fit is. So when it comes to community colleges, some students may use that as an option to maybe get started and then eventually transfer into a four-year institution. Some students may just stay local, maybe a community college or maybe not a community college, but stay local and use that to keep costs down. However, I think the best way to weigh those options is to actually apply to those schools that you're interested in, because you never know what type of aid you may qualify for, what types of scholarships you qualify for until you apply, get admitted, and receive that financial aid package. And so I know especially right now, a lot of students may be looking into those community college opportunities or looking to transfer eventually to their university of choice, and that is perfectly fine. But make sure that as you're going through that process, you're aware of, do those costs change being a first-time college student to being a transfer student? What expenses and fees are there in terms of my classrooms and my books? Do my courses transfer? So granted, some students may use that as an option to transition in full time. However, you have to make sure that those credits transfer, that you at least get something for them before engaging in a bunch of coursework that your university may not accept. So definitely do all of that research in advance and ultimately figure out the type of school for you. Let's see another one. Do student activities in high school help get into school? So they definitely can. I always encourage, even if you're not using it for college purposes, definitely get involved in your schools. That is a great way to just make connections all across school, and you never know who you'll meet in those organizations or how that may lead you to better things. However, yes, they can help you when it comes to that college application process. Depending on the type of school you're looking into, some of them may be more, some of them may have college admissions requirements that are based off of your academic history. Some may use a more holistic process. And so at a school where they may use a more holistic process, they may look into those academics. They may look into those activities. They may look into those letters of recommendation, maybe a resume or a personal statement. So having something that you can actually talk about and something that you're engaged in can definitely help out with that opportunity. Now, I will say having activities doesn't mean go out and join every single club or activity that your school offers. So maybe find a few things that are genuinely an interest to you and put your all into that. So don't necessarily go join 20 clubs and only go to one meeting each school year, but maybe join 3 or 4 clubs and put your all into that. Maybe run for an executive board position, or maybe just be an active and consistent member. That's what really reflects your passion and your dedication to those schools. And do I have any tips for admissions letters? That is a great question. So I believe you're talking about like letters of recommendation. I would say ask for them in advance and also figure out what schools require them. See if your school requires that they come from a person in a particular department, or see if they require that they create an account and go through a portal, or if they just need them mailed in. In terms of asking for the letters, I would say do it politely, do it in advance so that a person has at least a few weeks to get that letter out to you. And talk to people that you have a genuine relationship with that can actually speak to your character. So don't necessarily ask a friend, or maybe not a family member, but maybe a teacher, maybe a community leader, someone that you volunteer with, or that's a leader in an organization that you're in. So I would say those would be some of my tips for asking for some admissions letters of recommendation. And also make sure that you feed them any information that they need. So if there's any criteria as to how long it needs to be or any things that it needs to cover, definitely relay that information to them too. Oh, thank you, Tasha. That is so sweet. She said she loves this. It's very classy. I try. Let's see. How can I find out if a school has an active Greek life? That's a good question. So you can, again, internet is your friend. So I always recommend Google it first. If not, reach out to someone like myself, reach out to an admissions representative, and we can usually put you in touch with that Greek life or fraternity and sorority life that a school has. So usually there are websites. If you type in like Greek life and your respective school's name, you should see if they have something, it would typically pop up. Every different Greek organization may have their own intake process or how they go about accepting new members. So I think it's very important to start doing that research now if it's something you're even slightly interested in, so that you can see if any steps need to be taken prior to you actually being physically on that campus. That's a really good question. Okay, it looks like questions are slowing down a bit. So while I do have a quick second, I do want to remind you all, again, thanks for tuning in, but also remember that this is a fundraiser. So this is part of Social Works Prom Fund, a reminder that you can go to their website, which should be right below me, or text Social Works to 797979 in order to make a donation. Those donations are going towards putting on a celebration event. So kind of similar to why I'm here today, it's for high school students who are missing out on proms and graduations and all of those celebrations that they typically have. I know I personally absolutely love my prom, and I was on the prom committee, so I know how much importance that situation has to these students. So definitely go ahead and donate too. See, another question popped up. Besides ACT and SAT scores, what do schools look for during admissions? So that is a really good question. Now, some schools just require that. Some schools, like mine, for example, at Mizzou, we don't require an essay or don't require letters of recommendation. So we are looking for those test scores and your GPA and grades and the classes you took in high school. However, every school is going to be different. And so that is why it's going to be important to start making that list in advance and looking up what your respective schools are looking for their admissions criteria. Some more selective schools may require those essays or those letters of recommendation, maybe even an interview process or getting in touch with an alum or a faculty member. So it's going to be really, really important to start conducting that search early so that you can see and make sure that you gather all the appropriate materials. Typically, they're going to look at your academics in some capacity, whether it's those grades or GPA or your test scores. They may ask for a resume. They may ask for a letter of rec. They may ask, like a question touched on earlier, about your involvement, whether it be in the community or in your high school. So I think it's going to be really important to look it up for each of your institutions that you'd like to apply to. What should I look to find? Or where should I look to find? Sorry, let me see. So I think, what should I look to find out about during a campus tour? Gotcha. So what you should be looking for, first of all, just see how you feel. Sometimes it's just about you being physically present on a campus tour. Now, I know right now we might not be able to go on those physical campus tours. However, if you do have the opportunity to physically be on a campus tour, or maybe you've seen one and you're like, okay, what should I be reflecting upon? That is a great question. So I would say, first of all, just see how you feel. Is that a place that you can spend the next 4 or so years of your life? Because ultimately, yes, education and that academic aspect is great. However, this is a place that you are going to literally be living for the next 4 or so years. So you want to make sure it's a place that you feel comfortable. You want to see what resources are available. So maybe, do you want to look for academic support? Do you need a tutor? Do you want to help tutor? Do you want to conduct research or maybe study abroad? So those are things that you can ask about. Honestly, what does the food taste like? Again, you're going to be living there. So if you have the chance to eat in a dining hall, what does that taste like? How will you go about using your meal plan? What do the dorms look like? Is there enough space for you? Do you need to have a roommate? Are you required to live on campus as a freshman? Those are some things that you can look for during a campus tour. See what students on the campus are engaging in and how they enjoy themselves, and also grow themselves both in and out of the classroom. Yeah, I see another one. Let's see. What are the advantages and disadvantages of going to a smaller school? So that's a really good question. So personally, my background, I went to a large university. So I went to Mizzou, the University of Missouri, and my school has about 30,000 students who attend. And so I had to adapt to that because obviously my high school was not that large. And so I think an advantage and disadvantage of going to a smaller school may be you may be familiar with that size and with that environment a little bit more. I think it might be maybe a more condensed campus. So in terms of navigating it, things might be a little bit easier to find. And it may just give you the opportunity to get to know more people and see some more familiar faces that are across that campus. Now, with that being said, those are also things that can be a pro and con at a large university. So if you wanted to get involved on a large university's campus, I think that's a way to make that large campus feel smaller. And so I think that can be something that, depending on what you're looking for in a university, you can take into consideration. You might also get to know your professors too. You can still do that at a large university. I think a lot of the times that just takes initiative, both at a small campus and a large campus. I think both schools, both large, small, medium, honestly, all have their pros and cons, but ultimately it's up to the effort that you put into it. So it's a matter of, do you step outside of your comfort zone? Do you go to your professor's office hours? Do you join clubs? Do you stay after class to talk to your professor? So don't limit yourself to thinking large and small, but maybe think about what resources and who you have access to and what you have access to at each of those universities. How can I get along with my dorm mate? That's a great question. So depending on your school, you may or may not have a roommate during those years that you live on campus, or maybe even if you move into an apartment, you might have a roommate. And it's definitely important to get along with them. Of course, you're not going to fall in love with everyone that you meet, but usually schools will have some sort of matching form. So if you do have someone in mind that you want to live with, a lot of schools may allow that option. A lot of students are also taking to social media to find each other too. So you might see different like Instagram hashtags or Facebook groups where students are going and meeting each other before they actually get to campus. So that way you actually know what you're walking into before you physically get on campus. I think if you are having issues, typically your school will have an RA, so a residential advisor or resident advisor, who can help you out with that. So you can always reach out to them if you ever needed help just figuring out how to get to know someone better or if there were any conflicts. But typically, most students would hang out with them. Just take stepping out of your comfort zone and maybe going to a campus event together, getting to know each other on a personal basis in order to deepen that friendship. How can the college experience be different on an urban campus in a big city versus a rural university? That's a good question. So I think, again, kind of in the aspect of the experience is what you make it, but it also might transition into that also depends on the resources that are around you. So in a larger city, like let's say, for example, you went to school in Chicago versus going to a school that is in a college town, you may have access to different shopping opportunities or different people that are around you or the hustle and bustle of the city that you're in. So I think your experience might just change based off of the resources that are available to you. So maybe you do or you don't have a mall. Maybe you do or don't have a spread out campus. So for example, if you stayed in Chicago and went to a campus or went to a school with multiple campuses throughout the city, you might have to go to a few different places. Or maybe you go to a college that's very much so a college town and everything is a little bit more condensed. It'll just be dependent on the type of school that you're looking for and what you're hoping to gain from that large or small campus. I think that's where that college visit really comes into play. And again, if you can't physically visit, take advantage of your online resources too, so that you can see what those schools have to offer, what it looks like in the surroundings. Are you surrounded by cornfields or are you surrounded by skyscrapers? It'll really be dependent on. I see, how can my high school counselor help me apply for college? Your high school counselor is someone that you should start making that relationship with as soon as you can. In my presentation that'll play after this, you'll hear me talk about how you can start that relationship too. Your counselor is going to be your go-to person that will help you through the college application process because they'll probably be the ones to maybe write a letter of recommendation for you or send us your transcripts or help you out when it comes to just locating a college that you should be applying to in general. Definitely, if you haven't already, start making that connection with them so that you can, number one, match a name with a face if you haven't already, and also find out what resources and services they're having. They're usually the ones who put on college fairs. They're usually the ones who bring in college admissions representatives. So definitely talk to them about the opportunities that are available and how they can best service you. They can help you when it comes to finding out dates for the ACT or SAT, finding that best college fit. And ultimately, you want to make sure that you are going about building that relationship and having that strong connection with them so that you can make the most of your college experience. They'll know about a lot of deadlines that are approaching. They'll know about different scholarships that are nearby, different resources for you. So I would say your high school counselor is probably one of the best, if not the best person to start talking about your college application process with and seeing how they can be of assistance. Right now, since we're doing everything virtual, maybe shoot them an email. Look on your school's website if you don't know who your counselor is right off the bat and see if you can reach out to them and start expressing that interest in, hey, I want to start my college search. Do you have any advice, especially if you haven't been on a campus visit? Maybe they can tell you about how they went on their college search too. Yeah. All right, so I think we're, again, slowing down on questions. So if there are any more, I'll take maybe one more question before wrapping up, and then we will go ahead and replay the video that was not played on Instagram Live earlier so that you all can see it. And I know it'll probably dive into a lot more detail on some of these questions that were asked and give you the opportunity to probably take some notes too. Just a reminder that if you want to catch up on this one or see other workshops that happened, you can head to YouTube, and that's youtube.com/socialworks. And that way you can subscribe, get more notifications on when things are going on, and they can put on some more cool things once they get some additional followers too. And if you want to make a donation, again, head to the link that's right below me or text SocialWorks to 797979 for some more information too. So I think we are all good in terms of questions and comments. So I just want to thank you all so much once again. It's been a pleasure talking to you all and answering your questions. Feel free to connect with me via Twitter at Mizzou Mariya. That's MIZZOU MARIYA. You can also shoot me an email at askmariya@missouri.edu. That's ASKMARIYA@missouri.edu. My contact information is also on our admissions website, so you're more than welcome to reach out to me through there too. Hopefully this was able to provide you with some additional guidance and answer some of those questions that you have. And hopefully you can tune into the video after this and get some more of that information. So thank you so much again. Don't forget to support Social Works and these workshops and the Social Works Prom Fund. And I hope you all have a great evening.
Social works, keep my family out the dirt. This organization, we stopping no Satan and open, but we call it SWorks. Action on Taylor, the killer verse. I do my family, my city hurt. They killing our babies, this work going crazy. I pray for my city to reimburse. Private schools for the kids, we the city, and we